Okay, so today we're going to talk about singletons. In our last tutorial about static variables and methods, we talked about, car having a paved road, car.paved, or a road, whatever it was. And the idea is that it's a shared variable everyone can see and access. So singletons are pretty much the same thing except it's a shared class. Everyone has the same class. So now we'll take a look at that and it'll probably make a little more sense. Over here we have a class called tutorial. And it's got a main method, and it goes through and it tries to make 10 tutorials, and they're all going to be with a name called singleton, and we'll just do plus I. So that way it's singleton 0, singleton 1. And over here we have the tutorial name, so we're just going to say this.name equals, tutorial name. And now we have to get the teacher. Now we have something, I already made a class called school. Now, school is pretty simple. What we have here is an array list, and we have a constructor, and in that constructor we make a new array list, and we add Jack, Jill, John, Adam, and Bill to that array list. And now we have a method called getTeacher, and what that does is, if there are teachers left, so if teachers.size is greater than 0, return one of the teachers, and remove it from the list, because he's no longer available right now. And then if there's no teachers left, just return no teacher. So I guess it'll be an empty classroom. So now what we do over here is if we want to get a teacher, what we're going to do is do school equals new school, and there we go. And teacher will just be equal to school dot get teacher. So let's save this. Now what we're going to do is, by the way, use a little nifty function in NetBeans I wanted to show you. Insert code, getter and setter. And now we can just insert name and teacher. Just click that, and there you go. You get all these getters and setters. Now what we're going to do in our main method is we're just going to print out, the name of the tutorial and the teacher for that tutorial. So now let's just run tutorial. Let's right click and just run file. So now you're going to see over here, singleton 0 has teacher Jack. They all have teacher Jack. So what happened? Well, I think if you think about it for a moment, it'll make sense. You made a new school over here, and each time you make a new school, it has its own list of teachers. They're not shared, because this is just an instance, not a static one. So now what we can actually do is we can actually do what we just did right here. Public final static school equals new school. And all we have to do now is, instead of asking for a new school, we can just delete this and just go school. And so now we're only asking for a static variable, which means that, yeah, there really is one class, or you can make as many classes, or there's one instance, but everyone shares that one instance, and you can get it really easily with this code. So there we go. And now let's run this thing again. So if we run this file again, we're actually going to get Jack, Jill, John, Adam, and Bill. We'll go through the list. And then there won't be any teachers for the last 5 or so classes. And so that is how you make a singleton. And it's pretty much done here, except there might be a few ways to make singletons. Some people like to make this private, and they like to get rid of the static and get rid of this. And they make something called a singleton method. So what we'll do is public static, and we'll make it a school. And this is pretty much the exact same end result. And now if school equals null, we're going to return school equals new school. Otherwise, we'll just, we're going to make school equal to new school. We shouldn't return it just yet. But no matter what happens, we're going to return school. And so pretty much what happens is, if it doesn't exist, make a new school. If it does exist, just return whatever exists. And that way you're always going to get the same school. So now if we go over to here, we'll just do school.singleton. Now if we save this, we're pretty much going to get the same thing if we run it. There's no difference, John, Jack, and then no teacher 5 times. Now one of the things that might be useful here is if school equals null, or let's say we say teachers, or school.teachers.size equals 0. So now this is pretty interesting. So what we just did right now is, if school equals null, it'll make a new school. If there is a school, then it'll check if there's no teachers. If there's no teachers, we'll make a new school, because, well, doesn't that make sense? So this is where having a method might make a little more sense. So now you have Jack, Jill, John, Adam, Bill, and then it'll repeat again. The way of code actually works quite well. And the real problem with it is, in fact, if you want to serialize this, or you make a new school. So for instance, I could code over here school equals new school, and you can't really stop me from doing that and everything. So now there's lots of ways of almost attacking my code, I guess, or a very bad programmer might accidentally attack my code, whatever it might be. So now how do you get around this? So now let's say I make this into enum, and now I can do something along the lines of instance, and of course I can do something like that, instance, and so pretty much now we can get rid of this school method, and let's get rid of this just public here. So now we have this perfect enum, and we can actually get rid of this thing, and it does all this serialization and protection from being attacked by some sort of code, and you can't do school equals new school, stuff like that. So school dot instance, and there you go. And now let's just save that and run it. And so this enum seems to be a much better way of coding singletons than otherwise. Of course, you don't really have this option of making a new school if you run out. There are some limitations. Of course, you can make many instances. So maybe the first one is middle school. Whoops, middle school, and this one's high school or something like that. And usually you probably want to keep them capitalized for like I said before, that's just the way people do things with static variables. Not necessary though. So now we've lost this instance variable, but now we have a high school, or maybe we want to do middle school. We have all these different schools, and that's an advantage to enums over singleton. Singleton, there's really only one. But let's say we want 3 or 4 schools, and we know we only want 3 or 4 schools, and maybe each school is like our situation here, middle school, high school, university. And so now you can actually have multiple ones like the singleton system that we developed, but it's just much more logical. You have to choose really what you're designing and whether this is going to be important, and there's a lot of design decisions that even come in whether you want to use singletons. Singletons are where there's only should be one class and then it should be shared.